back on.
Okay, not a problem.
Mayor, did you get my text regarding the order that
I did.
court administrator to speak first? Thank
Yep.
Yeah,
I'll
Mayor
probably pass.
Stevens, we're now live.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to this regular city council meeting, Tuesday, May 25th. The clerk, please call the roll, keeping in mind our rules regarding virtual meetings.
Councilmember Babcock.
Thank you. Attending virtually from Oscoda Charter Township, Iosco County, State of Michigan.
Councilmember Bacon.
Ron Bacon, attending virtually. East Lansing, Michigan, Clinton County.
Councilmember Watson.
Here, attending virtually, East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Mayor Pro Tem Greg.
I am here attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan and Ingham County.
Mayor Stevens.
Present attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County. Thank you very much. We are now on to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda at this point?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I will make a motion actually to amend the agenda to remove item 6.1 from the business agenda as we got a reach out from the applicant asking us to remove that item from the agenda for today. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Great. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Great. We are now on to approval of the minutes. And are there any changes to any of the minutes as presented? Great. I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 11th special budget work session, the regular council meeting on May 11th, and a city council discussion only meeting on May 18th. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
All right, wonderful. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Great. We are now on to communications. The first item is written communications, which are received and posted on the online agenda packet. If I could ask the assistant to the city council, I'm not seeing a link under 2.1. Was that because we didn't receive any communications directly to the council, or there might be an issue?
No, we did it. I don't know why it's not showing up, so I'll work on trying to get that back up.
All right, great, thank you. Normally that would be where the link is. It has been there every week. Maybe there's a little bit of a technical issue, but we'll get that back up. Appreciate everybody that's written in. Next item is communications from the audience. We will be calling on folks that have called in to our meeting today. You will have 5 minutes to speak. I will be cutting folks off at that 5-minute mark, and our city council assistant will be letting folks know when they have 30 seconds left. You can speak to the council on any subject. Appreciate you calling in and being here. Emily, would you mind letting in the first caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 846, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Aaron Souza, 621 Sunset Lane. I wanted to address an issue I saw in the news, which was council using the privilege of their relationship to the city to gain access on people who are requesting or putting in petitions to run for council. This seems completely inappropriate for me, especially given the power dynamics between council and staff. This week, I know council is voting on the budget, which often therefore determines what staff will be doing. I think that making use of staff in this way is inappropriate, unbecoming of a democracy, and not what we should hope for in East Lansing. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually have a couple of comments on that, but I'll wait until my communications. Does anybody have any questions for the caller? Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Bacon.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. That's the best way I can put it. And the context it was placed. No, and
you don't think it's true?
No, I think it's common knowledge who's seeking to be elected. I don't think anyone's seeking extra privilege or advantage. I think it's a misrepresentation.
Yeah, I think the article referenced the city manager. getting your updates on it, but I'll address that when we get to communications from council members. Emily, would you mind letting in the next caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 516, you are now permitted to address council.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes. Oh, hi. This is my first time calling into a town council meeting. I am a relatively new resident to East Lansing. Moved here from California last June. I live right on Grand River Avenue, 1230 West Grand River. And the noise, the motorcycle noise, I know you guys discussed this in a discussion last week, but the car noise and the motorcycle noise is like unbearably ridiculous. And I guess I'd like to ask, what can be done about that? Most of my neighbors that I talk to are all complaining about it as well. Some of the cars that go by in the evening, I think they're these cars that the owners of the cars have modified the exhausts so that they're super loud and they crackle and pop. I mean, when they drive, and you can hear them for miles. You can hear them coming down Saginaw. You can hear them turning the corners. So the cars are one thing, but then the motorcycles, they come racing by in groups on Grand River, and they are like ridiculously loud. And I guess I'm just asking, can we get the police to patrol in the evenings and start citing people for noise violations?
Yeah, sorry, is that the end of your statement? I'm more than happy to respond, but okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling in. It is definitely something that we've addressed on this council and expressed that interest to the chief as well. One of the issue areas that we've definitely seen is especially on Albert. That tends to be a pretty big issue as well, definitely on Grand River. And we've kind of expressed that to the chief as well. There are some issues in regards to, vehicles that are just that are still allowed by the state and are by factory. Is that correct, George, or city manager? But
yes, my understanding is a number of the motorcycles, they're loud and they produce a lot of noise. People who ride the motorcycles say that gives them a margin of safety because it increases their visibility. And I know that's not a very satisfying answer, but if it's not factory changed, if it's factory original equipment, I don't believe they can actually cite them for a loud motorcycle. But
yeah, but one of the areas that really we see a lot of the issue is on Albert Avenue. And we really tend to see that ramp up when it gets a little bit warmer. And so as you'll see on the agenda tonight, there's actually an item on it to approve the closure of 2 lanes of Albert Avenue between M.A.C. and Abbott. This is actually kind of I agree with you that this has been an issue and something the council has expressed, especially to our chief, that we want to see a little bit more addressed. But, from a policy standpoint, it's also helpful for us to be able to actually kind of cut off that road that we see a lot of that activity coming in. So hopefully we're going to see a decrease, and we're definitely going to be monitoring it a lot more in the future, because this isn't something that's a new issue, but it's certainly something that we want addressed. And I think every council member is in agreement with that.
So that's, again, this is Jim again, Jim Worth, the caller. That's great for Albert, but it's not going to do anything for Grand River. Right. And again, so we're part of the Glencairn neighborhood, and we sit out, on our patios in the evening, and we just, we'll get together, some of the neighbors, and sit on the patios, and we'll just look at each other in astonishment when some of these vehicles go by at how, they're like jet airplane decibel level noise. It's so and again, a lot of it's cars, and I've done some research online, and there's kits that you can buy to basically cause your car to pop and crackle with the exhaust and sputter like that really, really loud. And I think that's what some of these younger drivers are doing. They're modifying their vehicles to make those sounds. And that's what I think the patrol, the police patrols should just sit for a couple hours, in the evenings along Grand River and watch for this, because it's literally, we can set our clocks by it. We sit here in our family room, and we're watching TV, and in the evening, and we all turn our heads and look at each other when they go by. It's again, and then don't get me started on the fireworks, because that started up again the last 2 nights ago. I think the fireworks were going off, and it's like, oh my God, what, my wife and I graduated from Michigan State in '89, and we were out in the San Francisco Bay Area for 30 years, and we just moved back to East Lansing, and we were so excited to move back, and now I'm like, oh my God, what did we move into here? The noise is so disturbing.
Yeah, no, and completely understandable, and I appreciate the call, and especially because you're bringing a little bit. I mean, the issue that we've really been hearing a lot about is in the downtown too, and so to hear that, especially from the Glen Cairn area down Grand River, is good for us to hear, and definitely good for city staff to hear, and our city manager.
Oh yeah, and I'm happy to walk off. I've had to do this for other reasons out in California, but I'm happy to just walk through the Glen Cairn neighborhood and get signatures, because I know that all the people up and down Grand River, and then the Glen Cairn side of the road, and then the historic neighborhoods on the other side, they all can hear this every night, and I'm sure they'd all sign petitions to try to crack down on it a little bit better.
Yeah, I appreciate the call, sir. Did anybody have anything else that they wanted to say to the caller?
Thank you very much.
Yep. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment. It's just throughout the city. I've gotten a number of emails, and some people give their locations, and I'm on Hagedorn, and it's easy to shoot from one light all the way down to the next light. And so it's not just the noise. If people are claiming the noise, they need the noise, they're racing down the street. They are over 25 miles per hour. And I will continue to just search for ways to figure this out, and for folks to be comfortable in the city.
Yeah.
Councilmember, I wasn't trying to justify it. I think the noise is terribly disruptive to people. So I agree with you completely. And when I'm walking in the downtown and they go by, you can't even hear yourself. I mean, if you're talking next to someone, you can't even hear them talking to someone right next to you. It's terribly disruptive. So I'll have further conversations with the chief to see what they can do in specific enforcement.
Okay. Councilmember Babcock.
I'm 5 houses in from Saginaw.
Councilmember Babcock, I apologize. I can barely hear you.
Well, that's ironic.
There you go.
I'm 5 houses in from Saginaw on Terrain, and we hear it. And I know that it's not necessarily on Saginaw. I mean, we're hearing it from Grand River and Coolidge. And I think there's a limit, though, to the number of decibels any vehicle is allowed to emit. And I think they're exceeding it. That's probably the sales pitch behind the jerk kits that people are using to modify their motorcycles and cars.
Yep. All right, appreciate that. Go ahead, Councilmember Bacon.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that Councilperson Watson, I think, brought this up maybe, 3 months ago. So I wanted to acknowledge that this has been brought to our attention. Maybe do some type of exploratory something around it and just see who's who out here with the motorcycles, because this sounds like it's been a long-standing problem. So
yeah, and it's gotten worse. I mean, it's just flat out gotten worse. All right, Emily, would you mind leaving the next caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 963, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Alice Dreger. I mostly want to ask you about the rental overlay issue, but I just wanted to follow up on something Councilmember Bacon said earlier, which was that everybody has access to who is running for office. It's interesting that the person who sent out press releases this morning running for office named transparency as one of the issues he'll be running on. It does seem to be a constant refrain in terms of city council elections in the city of East Lansing, which is great that that's a perpetual area of attention is wonderful. Not everybody has access to the information that apparently council can get from the staff with regard to who has pulled petitions or who has expressed interest in petitions. I asked the clerk for this information, which she doesn't by law have to give me, and she doesn't have to by law keep track of either. I understand why she keeps track of it, probably because she wants to make sure she answers questions if people have questions, which is great. but council is able to get that information earlier than other people. When I was not given the information, I waited a few weeks and it was unclear to me who was running. And that's information that a lot of our readers like to have so they know whether or not to run for council themselves. They wait to see who's running and then they make decisions. So I FOIA'd that information and I was able to obtain that information by the clerk doing her job very well and answering the Freedom of Information Act request. But it's simply not correct that we all have access to the same information. You may think it's common knowledge who's running for council, but it's actually not. And I understand some of you are getting the information from the staff, so just to clarify that. I know you're recognizing Judge Larkin tonight, and I wanted to personally thank Judge Larkin for always working with our reporters beautifully. She was so responsive in the years that she was a judge, as has been Judge Ball. The two of them have just been exemplary in terms of making themselves available, not only to our mature reporters, but also to our high school reporters. And they have just done a terrific job helping us with regard to information about how the courts work, including the specialty courts. I just want to thank them both as just being tremendously exemplary in terms of the press. Finally, on the issue of the rental overlays and the legislation that is before the state, quickly through the state system, I wanted to ask what it is that the lobbyist has been asked to do at the state level, because last night Mayor Stevens told the council neighborhood presidents that the lobbyist has been asked to weigh in on this at the state. And in general, I think it would be great if the people of East Lansing could know what our lobbyist is doing. What is our lobbyist representing us on? What are they asking about? It'd be wonderful if that could just simply be made available to us on the city website so that we understand what our lobbyist is trying to achieve, so that people can weigh into city council as they wish in terms of responding to pros and cons on what the lobbyists are doing. And which I'm hoping you'll all respond to, whether or not you're in favor of elimination of the overlay districts, because I know a few of you, for example, Mayor Stevens voted against. Some of you expressed concerns about discrimination and also keeping renters like families out of the area. It'd be great if you could talk about what your thoughts are on that. But I think in working on this, I realized that it's possible that Mayor Stevens is the first mayor of East Lansing to be a renter. I don't know how to verify that, but I was excited when I realized we have a mayor who is a renter. It seems like a pretty cool thing and a sign of things really changing, including having a majority council that is color. That's, to me, I was just excited today when I realized maybe our mayor is, well, our mayor certainly is a renter, but possibly the first mayor who's been a renter is an exciting thought. So that's all, and thanks for taking my call.
Thank you. We had a few questions in that. Councilmember Bacon, I saw your hand up earlier. Did you want to address anything in there?
Yeah, just addressing the previous caller. The statement was council directed that was in dispute. And that was the problem from it. And they said they viewed the report or something like that. So clearly there was something they read. So that was all I was getting at. Yep. Council directs nothing related to what staff does around elections.
Yeah. And I haven't asked for, nor have I received any information regarding who's running directly from staff. And from what I saw in the FOIA request, it was just the city manager that had gotten updates. But I'm going to address that a little bit more during my council member comments. Did anybody have anything else that they wanted to address from the caller or any other questions? City manager and then Councilmember Watson.
I would just mention in regards to lobbying, you know, our lobbyist has direction essentially from us that if there's something that is a policy that the city already has in place, that she would take steps to make sure and inform us of something or defend that policy because it's already the stated policy of the city. So if there's something different that council wants to direct in terms of policy activities, certainly we can do that at the council table anytime. But in this respect, if there already is something that is a policy of the city that's been an ordinance that's passed by the city, the defense of that is basically our jobs at that point. So we do it.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say in council neighborhood presidents, I was more just concurring with what Annette Irwin, our housing director, had stated in regards to our lobbyist. I would assume that, you know, with the MML and most municipal governments going against the short-term rental overlay, that our lobbyist was doing the same thing. And I actually made a statement to MML that I'm more than happy to read on the record today regarding my position on it. But I'll go to Councilmember Watson, then Councilmember Babcock.
My question for Dr. Drager was just, did the other candidates say when they asked who else had picked up packets that they were denied that knowledge?
Hi. I did not ask the other candidates whether or not they had asked for the same information that I had asked for as a reporter. So I do not know if the other candidates had in fact asked, but they would find that information from me if I were to report it. So if I had that information, everybody would have that information because it would be on the internet.
Thank you. And my second question is, you wanted to tell, Eli wanted to tell people in advance of us candidates being able to announce our candidacy.
Yes, and the reason is that we provide that information so that people know if there's somebody they want to support early in the process, they get that information. Also, if they want to do coalition building, also if they see somebody running who they think is a very definite candidate, early. The earlier the people get information, the more they feel prepared to deal with the council race. That's what we've heard from people who have run for council and supported candidates, and et cetera. So one of the things we know, for example, is that when people are known to be running for council early on, sometimes they hear from people who want to support them, and that allows them to get their candidacy off to a very early start. So we try to provide the information to everybody as early as we can, just so that everybody knows what the scene is. And I actually waited several weeks after the clerk denied me the information before I filed the FOIA, because I thought the information might actually come out on its own, but it hadn't. So as part of my job, I bothered to file the FOIA to get the information to provide it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking, Councilmember Watson. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and in general, when there's a question from a council member to a caller, we can take the timer off the screen because I count that as a council member following up with an individual asking a question. Councilmember Babcock. I still can't hear you. And now you're muted, I believe.
I can be far enough away that I look appropriately blurry like Elizabeth Taylor, or I can be close enough that you can hear me speak. It's a tough choice. Back to the lobbyist. It would be interesting. Perhaps we could get a quarterly report from the lobbyist just about what they've been doing. Just include that in the council packet, which also reminds me that we used to get a quarterly report from the city attorney, just recapping what the city attorney had been doing in the past quarter, updates on cases. Some of it, of course, was redacted because of active litigation, but if we could go back to that practice, and I'm not sure if we ever made you aware of that, Mr. Homier, but I think that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Emily, would you mind letting the next caller?
Those are all the callers on the line.
Great. All right. Let's head over to communications from the mayor and council members. I have a number of things that I want to address today, but I'll start out with the mayor pro tem.
I don't have anything to say today.
Great. Councilmember Watson.
Pass.
Okay. Councilmember Babcock.
It's nice weather, folks. Let's wrap this meeting up with all deliberate speed and go outside and enjoy ourselves.
Great. Councilmember Bacon.
Just a couple things. Just reading an article and just wanted to speak to that half of the U.S. adults fully vaccinated against COVID, effective on this timeline today. I think that's a miraculous accomplishment. Being in biotech industry and things like that, this is a Herculean effort on all sides to reach this point in the United States. And I just want to congratulate people, ask you to continue on this path of vaccination, full vaccination, and it is the highest level of patriotism to participate and protect others from this deadly disease. May 25th, this marks the enshrinement of the 1-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd. This speaks to me greatly because this would be a catalyst and a confluence of events that even arrives me at this point to be sitting on council, being motivated to be more civilly engaged, more civically engaged, and just overall understanding the urgency of the need for change and for some things to get moving and for us to live out certain parts of our creed that we weren't living out. So I just want to speak to that. I want to give a shout out to East Lansing girls and boys track and field, regional champions in second place respectively in their groupings heading to the states. It was an amazing effort under having gone through the football season this year, under the testing protocols and distancing and attempting to train and all the things, having people out and all those types of things that occurred during this COVID time to arrive as regional champs and second place in the region respectively on their way to the state championships. I want to wish them luck and safety and health as they travel to state championships. This week, senior prom, once again, another event, just some of the things that kind of feel like normal life for all the young people. Many of my students or my team, guys on my team, people who didn't get to enjoy some of the stuff last year, including my own daughter. I just wish everyone well on this year with both senior prom and graduation. If I don't get a chance to acknowledge it later, just be safe and enjoy it. And it's exciting to see a level of normalcy returning for everyone, including the students. I know what a challenging year plus this has been, really tough. And last but not least, happy Memorial Day weekend and safe travels, and just want to pay respects to soldiers and military, commissioned and non-commissioned military people who lost their lives defending the United States, and just have a safe holiday and continue to use proper distancing and safety to the best of your ability. And let's kind of get through this safely and holiday weekend and everyone arrive back safely.
Thank you very much. Alrighty, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. One thing that was mentioned by Councilmember Bacon that I do want to address, and I think it's especially important this week in East Lansing specifically, as the Police Oversight Study Committee has concluded a lot of its work, is finalizing presentation for the City Council, and we're working on getting that on an agenda in the future. That message has stayed with us, and that the importance is still there, and that the work has continued for years in this city, but that the past year has been truly transformative, I think, within the city, not only putting our money where our mouth is in terms of staffing changes and reforms, but also policy, and now seeing the work of incredible members of our community and incredible members of our staff come together to give us a recommendation going forward on creating a police oversight committee is arguably one of the most impactful and difficult things that we've ever done on the City Council. And I can say that knowing full well that I am in the last year of my term. This conversation started 3 years ago, and it evolved and it evolved again. And it took community members, it took experts, it took the public, it took our staff, it took everyone to put in sweat, time, tears, and a lot of incredible passion to make the work that we did and that they did happen. And so as we go into that conversation going forward, I'm just really proud of this city. It's a difficult conversation. It's a constantly difficult conversation, but it's important. And I'm glad that we're here, and I'm glad that I'm on this council that put this as a priority, and I'm glad that I'm in a community that puts this as a priority. I think that as we recognize this anniversary, I think that some people have moved on, quite frankly. I think that some folks have decided that, you know, making that one change was enough, or stating, you know, putting something on the record was enough. But the actual policy change is hard, and it's not something that you do overnight. It's something that's constant. So I just want to acknowledge the incredible work that's been done so far, and the incredible work that will happen in the future. We also have a couple of items on our agenda tonight that I am especially proud of, and I'm going to address this in our special presentation. But I just want to give an incredible thank you to Judge Andrea Larkin for her service to this community. Talk a little bit more during the special presentation, and I'm going to be reading a resolution into the record. But you know, I'll speak a little bit personally, but it was difficult for myself to be an elected official at 21, let's say. And there were people in the community that you know, doubted and certainly put a difficult stance on myself, and I had to definitely earn a little bit of respect, I thought, than a lot of other people did. And that's something that happens. And it's kind of a balance, weirdly, of me trying to represent young people, but also not be the token for that. And there were people in this community that embraced me as maybe an outsider immediately, and not just embraced, but gave me a level of respect that I can't appreciate enough. And one of those people was Judge Larkin, who treated me just as any other person that got elected to this council was, and then helped guide me in so many different issues. And I've always been able to call on her to ask for advice, and I've always been inspired by your work. So I'm going to talk a little bit more during the special presentation, but I'd want to express that to you here because you're at this meeting today. That I truly, truly thank you for your service and everything that you've done for this community and for myself. So
thank you, Aaron. I'm not sure I deserve all that, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge. All right. Next thing that I'm going to address is a little bit more on the negative side, and I apologize that we're going to be doing that, but I think it's important. So we had an issue last week that I really don't think I can go without addressing. Our clerk's office was called out in what I think is an apparent attempt to cast doubt upon the integrity of the electoral process in East Lansing, specifically the council election this coming year. The main item that was mentioned as evidence for this was that the city clerk was informing the city manager regarding who was actually taking out petitions to run for council. Not only do I think this is a non-issue, I think that if the leader of the city did not know who was possibly going to be in charge, it would be a bigger issue. There was no show of bias or malintent or prejudice in any of the communications that I saw in the FOIA request. I think, in fact, the most controversial thing that I saw was when the city manager hit the clerk back with a K thanks versus okay, instead of spelling the word okay out. There is no issue here in terms of the city manager being informed by the city clerk, who, from my understanding, took the initiative themselves, who may be running for council. And just to make sure that I was absolutely certain that this wasn't an issue, I reached out to the former clerk of over a decade to make sure that I wasn't biased myself, and they concluded the exact same thing that I did. Now, the assertion to cast doubts on the minds of people in our community that there's something unethical afoot is not only unequivocally false, it's flat out dangerous. And I'm scared because I feel like we didn't learn anything from our past election. There are still millions in this country that believe that the election was stolen with absolutely no evidence of that, and every case thrown out of court. This is close to a Trumpian tactic to suggest that there is corruption going on within our clerk's and city manager's office to do this. In fact, what is even more scary than this is that members of this council have even contributed to that. And that's not okay in my mind. There's always going to be a story, and the media holding folks accountable is vital to our democracy. But I think it is on us, and I don't blame the story for running. I think it's on us as leaders of the city not to play into it. It's on us to tell the truth. It's certainly on us to call out things when we need to change, but it's also on us to defend those who deserve to be defended. And so we have done a lot of work, and we still have a lot more work to do, but we can't hurt the people that are doing the work with us in this process. We have made incredible change in the last year. Look around in East Lansing. We have done incredible things. This is a new East Lansing. This is a different East Lansing. Be proud of that. And there will always be folks in our community that want to tear down those successes. But we need to contribute to the successes, not contribute to those that are tearing it down. And so I just need to express that, because to suggest that our clerk did anything unethical was beyond me. And I think that as the mayor of this city, I needed to defend. And that's what I'm here to do. And I want to make that as clear as possible. All right. I will move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the comments regarding our clerk. I also want to support our clerk, Jennifer Schuster. Extremely ethical, extremely professional. The ICMA, International City Managers Association, actually speaks to the issue of a city manager being involved in an election. It involves actually ethical violations, but it's actually when the manager is actively involved in campaigning, endorsing candidates. Being able or being told who actually has pulled petitions or is running, to me, would be any city manager in this state would be in a violation if that were the case, and it's obviously not the case. There is no ethical issue with that, and I certainly have no issue with Jennifer writing it, and I had no issue knowing it. It actually helps me in the future when I have to reach out to people to just introduce myself and say who I am, which I do equally with all candidates, and I'm happy to continue doing that. But my position is strictly nonpartisan, non-political. I work equally for council, all council, and that's what I'll continue to do in the future. In terms of a number of items, I wanted to mention the Memorial Day anniversary. We are hosting a Memorial Day wreath laying on Thursday at 3:30 in the afternoon at the East Lansing Hannah Community Center. If you've been able to go to one of these, it is a brief event, but a very nice and meaningful event. Our own Lansing-based 1st Battalion 24th Marines Charlie Company lays a wreath at the tomb, at the monument that recognizes those who've lost their lives in service to our country. So it is a somber occasion, but it is a worthy recognition held by our community. So I appreciate our staff and our Marine Company coming over to do that recognition. I'll be there to say a few words as well. I also wanted to note, as everyone mentioned, the anniversary of the death of George Floyd. When I think a year ago, we made a strong statement about being an anti-racist organization and putting that into our practice. We've taken a large number of steps, and I'm certainly proud of the steps we've taken, including hiring a full-time diversity inclusion administrator, obviously supporting the police oversight activities over the past 7 months with all the staff support that they needed to do their jobs. Pleased to do that. They've done a lot of great work, and I got to thank them yesterday for the product that they produced. And we obviously created what I thought was a very significant realignment of our police department, moving away from a focus on enforcement and going more towards providing assistance. And obviously we talked about that, but this budget reflects a significant reduction of about 10% in sworn officers and the increase in the non-enforcement positions. And those positions have been fully integrated into the department, and we get to see the benefit of those on a somewhat regular basis where they're providing assistance to people, even critical assistance to people. And that is, I think, something that our department should be very proud of for embracing those changes and making them successful. So certainly pleased with that. So on this anniversary, while it is certainly a somber occasion, what we can take from ourselves is the call to action to continue to do good work on behalf of our community in remembrance of Mr. George Floyd. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll go to the city attorney's report, Mr. Hummer.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. As you're probably aware, the MDHHS issued a updated order yesterday. We're still going through that in conjunction with the updated rules from MIOSHA. But I'll call attention to a couple of things that I find curious about the new order. In the May 15th order, which exists through June 1st, that order eliminated capacity restrictions for attendance at public meetings subject to the Open Meetings Act. That provision has been removed from the new order so that the capacity restrictions in the new order effective June 1st apply to public bodies and attendance at public meetings. The restrictions have been revised to allow the greater of 25 people or 50% of the occupancy rated by the fire marshal for those premises. So it's the greater of 50% of the stated occupancy or 25 people, whichever is greater. Another curious thing about it is that there was also a requirement in the current order, the one that exists through June 1st, that would require people to be socially distant 6 feet apart, even when in attendance at those public meetings. That has been removed as well, right, which is a couple of curious things. So the reason for that, I can't figure out, but the general capacity limits now as stated in the June 1st order will apply to public meetings going forward, which again may or may not present an issue with respect to attendance at public meetings. So like I said, we're still going through both of those updates, and we'll probably have some additional guidance for you.
Okay. I appreciate those updates. I do think that it's important that we note that there are commissions at this point, including Council of Neighborhood Presidents, that are wishing to meet in person, which are not necessarily open meetings, but I do think that would be interesting to hear our attorney's perspective on like what we could do in regards to maybe some of those meetings that aren't necessarily open to the public and aren't maybe subject to OMA, but we might be allowed to do so. And then the other thing that I would request of the city attorney's office is a little bit of an update to what House Bill 4722 and Senate Bill 446 would do to affect our current rental overlays and licenses. It's something that we've talked about in the community a lot, but it does seem to be moving fairly quick, as a previous caller mentioned. And it is something that is a huge issue in our city. And I think that we need to be ready for it as soon as possible.
Certainly. I just one last thing too.
Yep.
You're probably aware of the mask mandate as well. There are 13 separate exceptions. So, depending on, and the city, because it's an establishment as defined under the new order, you have to meet a good faith requirement for people who are either able to wear masks or unable. So depending on which category you fit in, either vaccinated or subject to some other exception, you need not wear a mask indoors. However, there is this good faith requirement in the order that allows you to require masks to meet that good faith requirement. So if you can post a sign notifying people that wearing a mask is required unless they fall into an exception. You can ask patrons not wearing masks whether they fall into a specified exception, require face masks of all patrons and employees, or you can adopt any other policy designed to ensure compliance with Section 4A, which is a mandatory mask for persons participating in indoor gatherings.
Understood. And that obviously has a pretty significant effect on us as a city reopening City Hall, but I also think it has a profound effect on the businesses that are definitely a little bit confused right now. And so maybe another thing that I would request, and I'm sorry to put more things on staff's plate here, but I have gotten reached out to by a few local businesses that are a little bit confused at this point about what they should be doing in regards to their employees, requiring folks with masks in. Of course, the order mandating that if you are vaccinated, you can, if you aren't, you can't, right? And a little bit of hesitation in terms of like asking. Maybe if we could get an explanation or even a one-pager that we could send out to some of our local businesses in an email or whatever it is, just to try and help out.
I think we probably want to have links to the Ingham County site, just so that's consistency of messaging, to make sure that they're pushing them back to their message, and then direct them towards county public health. Sorry, but we can certainly do that.
And I mean, maybe that's reaching out to Ingham County Health because they've been working with the chamber.
Yeah.
Or at least they were working with the chamber very early on to try and do this communication. Maybe we could reestablish some of those lines, but yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Hummer?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Great. All righty. We are on to something sad and also happy at the same time. We have our 3.1 presentation recognizing the professional achievements of the Honorable Chief Judge Andrea Andrews Larkin. I will hand this over to Nicole Evans, our court administrator. Nicole, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Honorable Council Members. The resolution being proffered this evening is to honor the Honorable Andrea Andrews Larkin, Chief Judge of the 54B District Court, for her service to this court and this community. Judge Larkin's legacy began as the first woman elected to serve as judge for the City of East Lansing. It grew when she became presiding judge of the court's sobriety and drug courts. It increased even more as she sought to find ways to increase access to justice by offering online dispute resolution. Aside from her intelligence and tenacity, words often used to describe Judge Larkin are fair, gracious, and kind. But the time here is too limited to tick off a list of her accomplishments. So instead, what I offer is confirmation that the legacy that she has created is set to inspire future judges and how they serve the court and community. Honorable Council, I respectfully request approval of the resolution honoring the Honorable Andrea Andrews Larkin. Thank you.
Judge Ball.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, I'm here to simply publicly thank Judge Larkin for her service over the last 8.5 years. Not only Judge Larkin have I served with over her 8.5 years, but also I served 20 years with Judge Jordan. And during all of those years, I have had the luxury of serving in a 2-judge court where the judges have been personally cooperative, have been professionally proper at all times. You've heard that Judge Larkin has achieved some unique things with regard to her sobriety court and her other specialty courts. I am sad to see her go on a personal and professional level. She has forged a relationship with our court staff, our court employees, and the court administrators and our professional staff that it couldn't be better. You all probably are not aware of many multi-judge district courts in this state, and probably circuit courts also, that would kill for 2 judges in the same court that get along, talk with each other, agree on what should be done almost on a daily basis. Don't fight, don't backstab, don't carry agendas into the other judge's office, or into the courtroom. Probably, she and I probably both don't appreciate exactly how we've been able to do all that. I'll speak just to the last 8.5 years. It's been a trip for me. I fully intended that I would be retiring before she did. And I was comfortable with that notion. That's not the way it's worked out, and those are obviously her choices to make on a personal level. But she's been a joy to serve with. Makes all of our jobs easier, and we'll all miss her. And we wish her the best luck and the best wishes for her future.
Thank you very much, Judge Ball.
Thank you.
I'll hand the floor over to our Honorable Judge Larkin.
I did not know that I was going to be saying anything today, so I apologize that I did not have anything as eloquent as Nicole or Judge Ball in terms of a response back. I want to thank them both for their kind comments. I'm humbled by them. I'm not sure I deserve them, but the 2 of them certainly made it a wonderful place to work. Our staff is second to none at 54B. I can't tell you how many times in my courtroom when I heard from attorneys who had a choice of venue that they always preferred to come to East Lansing because of the efficiency and the competency and the responsiveness of our staff. And Nicole Evans and Kevin Tatro, our administrators, obviously deserve the credit for that. Judge Ball, you have been the most wonderful colleague. You were patient with me at the beginning when I was learning the ropes. You were informative. You are an incredible repository of history and institutional knowledge, not only for the court, but for the City of East Lansing. You served on the school board and on the Michigan District Judges Association. And I was honored to have somebody as my colleague who was as knowledgeable and as experienced as you were. And I too am surprised that I'm retiring sooner than you, because you've been talking about it since I became a judge. So. But I'm proud not only to call you a colleague, but I'm happy and humbled to call you a friend. I have been inspired during the time that I've been there by your service and your knowledge, and I thank you for that. I'm using these two words a lot tonight, but I've also been inspired and humbled by the participants in the treatment courts that Judge Ball and I both preside over. He, the Ingham County Veterans Treatment Court that was started by Judge Jordan. And then because of the tenacity of a couple inspiring probation officers, we started a felony countywide drug court and a sobriety court for repeat drunk drivers. And I think it's not an overstatement to say that the probation staff at 54B has been committed to recovery, and recovery keeps people from reoffending. And they've been committed to criminal justice reform before it was a front page issue. And there is no stricter adherent to constitutional protections for defendants and to the concept of bail reform from the day that I walked into 54B than Richard Ball. And so I think we should all acknowledge that. So I leave with a heavy heart, and it is very bittersweet, but other things call, and I'm 63 years old, and it is time for me to move on to those other things. It has been, as I said to Governor Whitmer, the singular honor of my life to serve the city of East Lansing in this way. And I thank all of you. I thank City Manager Lahanis for his continual support of the court, even when it was sought as a county-wide court and sought to be consolidated by others, and by the support that we've always received from the City Council in terms of our budget and our independence as a separate co-equal branch of government. I thank all of you for your service. I know firsthand that campaigning is not an easy thing to do, and that serving is not an easy thing to do. And so I want to acknowledge all of you for all that you do for this city that I love and that I've called home for the last 32 years.
Thank you very much, Judge Larkin. I'm going to ask a question to the city attorney. City attorney, we do have an item that is on our consent agenda, item 4.2. Would we be allowed to actually make a motion and pass that before the item on the consent agenda?
Yeah, I don't have any issues with that.
Great. Then I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, but I will make a motion to approve a resolution honoring the Honorable Chief Judge Andrea Larkin, and ask for a second. It's like a second from Councilmember Babcock. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. And I do have a comment on this. I think this is important enough that I'd actually like to read the resolution into the record. So I will do so. Whereas the Honorable Chief Judge Andrea Andrews Larkin, Judge of the 54B District Court, is retiring on June 1st, 2021, after completing outstanding service to the City of East Lansing and surrounding areas since 2013. And whereas Judge Andrea Andrews Larkin is a graduate of the University of Notre Dame and Notre Dame Law School, and whereas Judge Andrea Andrew Larkins worked for the Varnum firm, apologies, in Grand Rapids as an assistant city attorney in Granville, Michigan, was a partner in the Lansing office of the Detroit firm of Dickinson and Wright, and whereas Judge Larkin on April 11th, 2012, entered the race to become judge for the 54B District Court, and on November 6th, 2012, became the first female elected to serve the residents of East Lansing. Whereas Judge Larkin used her experience as a mother and attorney to bring a different frame of reference to a court that serves primarily student population. Whereas Judge Larkin was the 2016 recipient of the Carol Stell Award, which recognizes her contributions to the legal community and the advancement of women in the legal profession. And whereas Judge Larkin has served as the presiding judge of the 54B Sobriety Court and the 54B District Drug Court, implemented to rehabilitate and change the lives of 243 participants since the inception of each court. And whereas Judge Larkin has earned the admiration and respect of her staff and colleagues for her dedication, professionalism, compassion, and work ethic, now therefore it be resolved that the City of East Lansing City Council takes great pleasure in recognizing the significant professional achievements of the Honorable Chief Judge Andrea Larkins, and herewith expresses its sincere gratitude for the invaluable contributions she has made to the City of East Lansing and to the region. I'd just like to say, and the specialty courts were mentioned certainly, but I want to just say that not only did those courts have an incredible impact on those people, but it saved lives. And I cannot speak to, and I encourage members of council to attend graduations in the future. But to watch people that were in bad situations before walk out the other side, not only thankful for their experience as a client within our court, but in a better place mentally, with costs covered, with items off the record, and going into the world in a better place than they were before. When I tell people about what our courts do in East Lansing, when I am at conferences or I'm in different cities, people ask, how do we do that? What do we do? And one of the first things that I say is we got to have some pretty dang good judges. And I'm proud to say that we do. So thank you for your service. I'm incredibly proud to pass or to vote yes on this resolution. And I hope the rest of the council will support that. Were there any other comments?
I did just briefly want to say that I'm sorry I won't get to know you better. I feel like we had a chance to kind of connect before COVID, and then, had a year stolen from us, but I have had the privilege of tuning into some of the drug court graduations, and it really is just incredible, the personal connection that you've forged with a lot of those people coming through the court, which is, I'm the daughter of a defense attorney. I used to go watch my dad's closing arguments for fun in high school. And so I know that that is not the usual relationship between a judge and a defendant. So echoing everything that Aaron said just about the great impact that you've had on many lives in East Lansing, and we'll miss you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gregg. I'm sorry that I didn't get to know you better either, but I used to tell people in my courtroom, I'm like a brain surgeon or a high school principal. You don't want to get to know a judge very well. So.
Well, both of you are great, so it's all good. Go ahead, Councilmember Bacon, and then Councilmember Babcock.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your work, and having watched some of the special court stuff and just sit there and go, I'm not crying, you're crying kind of thing. It's just incredible, the work and the opportunity. I'm from Jackson, Michigan. I've seen what the fast track looks like when people don't get a second opportunity at redemption. And it's amazing, the connection and watching your whole team rally around individuals who probably wouldn't have gotten a second chance. So it's just a beautiful experience and very moving and very important. I thank you for that work.
Well, thanks for attending. I appreciate it.
Right, Councilmember Babcock.
Thank you. I think I'm the only one present tonight on this meeting who's had the opportunity to stand before you. And mercifully, I was representing someone, but I will say that Judge Larkin, you're truly one of the best. Both you and Judge Ball always treated clients with dignity and respect and looked for finding those solutions. And I will say, just a quick nod to Stephanie Martinez. This was like my favorite court to get into because it was efficient, but also because there was a demeanor to this court. There was just a well-mannered, very polite, very considerate of the circumstances that brought people in, whether they were facing charges or whether they were there because someone else was facing charges in a circumstance that they never asked to be in the first place. So I'm sure that whatever happens, East Lansing will continue to have a spectacular court, but you will still be missed. You had a special demeanor. So thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Councilmember Babcock. And our staff, before I got there and continued during my entire tenure, was incredibly kind and gracious to people who sometimes didn't start out with the greatest attitude, but they were always able to show them that they were not a number, not a name, and certainly not defined by the charges against them. And as I said at the beginning of this, the staff is second to none, I believe.
City
I
Manager.
apologize. It's Stephanie Gonzalez, not Stephanie Martinez. I'm so sorry. Pictured her face and I was like reaching for that last name. I'm sorry.
City Manager.
I just want to say thank you to Judge Larkin. It's been a pleasure serving with you. Obviously, we work together. I think our court and city enjoy one of the best relationships of any funding unit in court. And I think it's well-deserved because of the work of yourself, Judge Ball, the leadership on council, makes for a very good working relationship. So appreciate your service. Obviously, you've had a great career and a well-deserved retirement, but enjoy retirement and your next steps, whether it's retirement or if you have next steps other than retirement, enjoy.
For the short term, it's certainly going to be retirement, but I want to say again to you, City Manager Lahanas, that as I attended over the years, both formal and informal meetings with other district judges, I heard lots and lots of stories of conflict with their funding units. And we just never had that in East Lansing. The relationship was, I think, one of mutual admiration and so and mutual desire toward the same goals for the city of East Lansing. And you have a lot to do with that. You've been the only city manager there during my entire tenure, and I appreciate everything you've done, both for the court and for the city that does not impact the court.
Thanks for your service. Thank you for the comments.
Wonderful. Any more comments?
I just wanted to say thank you for your service and thank you for being a role model for women and girls and our community. So thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Watson.
All righty. We have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Chief Judge Larkin and Judge Ball, Court Administrator Nicole Evans, for being here with us today. Thank you for your service.
Thanks to all of you.
All righty. We are on to our next item, which is our consent agenda. I will hand that over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have the following items from the consent agenda for council's consideration. Item 4.1, approve the following appointments or reappointments to boards or commissions. A, Michael Olabisi to the Income Tax Board of Review for a partial term ending June 30, 2022. B, Brian Norix to the Income Tax Board of Review for a partial term ending June 30, 2023. C, Tom Schimpf to the Income Tax Board of Review for a full term ending June 30, 2024. Item 4.2 was removed and passed separately. 4.3, approve a resolution declaring June 4, 2021 as Gun Violence Awareness Day in the City of East Lansing. Item 4.4, approve the assurances form and grant application to the Michigan Council for the Arts and Cultural Affairs, MCACA, Capital Improvement Program for Phase 4 upgrades to the Albert A. White Performing Arts Theater. If funded, the MCACA CIP grant will provide funds to install live streaming capabilities and updating corresponding DMX systems to accommodate live streaming theater experiences. 4.5, approve a change order to the existing contract with Nielsen Commercial Construction for the renovation of the pavilion and restrooms at the Patriarch Park in the amount of $56,447.94 and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 4.6, approve the 2022 through 2027 capital improvements program plan. Item 4.7, approve a resolution to execute the cost-sharing agreement with the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, for stormwater utility improvements on Michigan Avenue and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 4.8, approve a purchase order in the amount of $22,512.80 with TLS Productions for ArcLight system lighting upgrades to the East Lansing Hannah Community Center Albert A. White Performing Arts Theater, and purchase order in the amount of $18,435 with Wireworks Electrical Services for electrical wiring and installation for the ARC system lighting upgrades, and authorize the city manager to sign. Furthermore, approve a project contingency of $4,000. Item 4.9, approve policy resolution 2021-10, a resolution allocating local revenue from the state marijuana regulation fund. Item 4.10, approve a one-year contract extension with Badger Daylighting Corporation in an amount of up to an additional $100,000 for the hydro excavation of water services and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 4.11, approve resolution to execute a cost sharing agreement with the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, for extension of the Red Cedar Greenway path on the campus of Michigan State University. Item 4.12, approve the liability insurance package presented by Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services Incorporated for the period July 1, 2021 through July 1, 2022, in the combined amount not to exceed $538,358, and authorize the finance director to sign all documents necessary to bind the insurance coverage. Item 4.13, approve a tree services contract with Top Notch Tree Care LLC for as-needed tree maintenance services in the amount not to exceed $90,000. Item 4.14, approve the Local Development Finance Authority, LDFA, fiscal year 2022 budget. Item 4.15, approve the closure of 2 lanes on Albert Avenue between M.A.C. Avenue and Abbott Road as a part of a pilot project to create a pedestrian centric walkway. Item 4.16, set a public hearing for June 22nd, 2021 to consider a site plan and special use permit application from MJW Investment LLC for the property at 128 Collingwood Drive to establish a fraternity in a Class A multiple family building. Item 4.17, set a public hearing for the 2021 through 2025 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan document for June 22nd, 2021. Item 4.18, introduce and refer to Planning Commission Ordinance 1501, an ordinance to rezone the property at 3225 West Road from RA Residential Agricultural District to B5 Community Retail Sales Business District. Those are all the items on the consent agenda for council's consideration.
Are there any items that folks would like taken off the consent agenda and move into the business agenda? All right, seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve. Councilmember Babcock. Oh, all right. Motion by Councilmember Bacon. Is that a second from Councilmember Babcock? Great. Any comments on the consent agenda? All right, I have a couple of comments that I wanted to make. As you'll see on item 4.9, I mentioned this briefly, but a resolution allocating local revenue from the State Marijuana Regulation Fund. That was a little bit of work done by definitely this council, but I also appreciate the staff effort on this behalf. I do think that at this point, we're going to be probably having the discussion when we, have some more time on the council. We're not going through necessarily the biggest budget process to figure out what else we can do with that type of money. At this point, any revenue in excess would remain in the general fund to support various activities and possibly staffing at 54B. But I do just want to mention that I think that utilizing these funds to especially help folks that might be indigent within our court system. Again, we just talked for a really long time about how incredible having those specialty courts are. But there's also a lot of people that aren't in specialty courts that are still required to pay out of pocket for a lot of things. And I do think that this money truly is truly going to make a difference in some of those folks' lives to really not continue that cycle of folks being put in difficult positions due to the criminal justice system and then being forced to, remain in financial distress because of it. So I think that's a great thing. Next thing that I wanted to talk about was item 4.15. This is a pilot project for June. We received a lot of feedback on this in the past. Myself and staff have gone out to local businesses in East Lansing to talk about even expanding this beyond. One of the things that I really want to mention is that my vision for East Lansing and downtown this summer is not just to see this on Albert, but to see wherever we can have outdoor dining, public places, placemaking opportunities, we do see that. And so I really appreciate the work of the DDA, especially our planning and building development staff, Adam Cummins, Heather Poth, Amy Schlichler-Schmidt, and more that have done a lot of work to make sure that we can support businesses during this time and are continuing to do that. I hope that we don't just see Abbott or Albert Avenue, but also in some of the public right-of-ways where there could be plaza opportunities for outdoor seating in other areas. We really could encourage a placemaking and an inviting environment in the downtown. But the one thing that I would mention is signage is a huge issue with this. And that was something that was expressed to us through the businesses. I want to make sure that if we do need to create the extra expense to make sure that folks know this is where you park and it's not an orange cone that tells you where it is, but it might be a brightly colored sign. I don't imagine this is a one summer deal. I imagine that for the next several years, we're going to have a lot of placemaking opportunities in the summer in East Lansing. And that's a silver lining to a really unfortunate situation this past year. But I think it's a good step going forward. And the other thing is that we are just maintaining a healthy stash of input from businesses, and we are continuing to seek that out. This is a program that would only go until the end of June, and then we would decide to continue it if it has been working. And so I think that it's really, really important that we maintain that business input and we continue to hear from the folks that are, experiencing it and either benefiting or maybe have some helpful suggestions. So I think this is a great thing for East Lansing. I think that we've heard a lot of support from businesses for it. We've heard a lot of support from community members for it. So I'm happy to see this pilot program go forward, and I'm excited to see what downtown looks like this summer. Councilmember Babcock.
Thank you. Well, I share your enthusiasm for downtown East Lansing. I have heard from some businesses who first speak in absolute glowing terms about Mr. Cummins and Ms. Schussler-Smith and what the city intends to do for downtown. However, there are businesses that have concerns about Albert being shut, even for a short period. So I would like to say that it's important that we have the mapping and the signage so that people understand how they can get in and out of downtown. Actually, if they could just get in and we're stuck there, that would be great. Perhaps they would increase the shopping. But my thoughts, not the businesses. They would never do that. But we really want to be sure that everyone benefits. And reconsidering this in June, I do look forward to hearing from some of the businesses that have been concerned. Their concerns primarily lie in the fact that this is a third year for them, pandemic last year and construction downtown. So for some of the businesses that are retail, the traffic moves a little differently for them. And I just would hope that we keep them in mind and help people find those businesses as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. And that's actually why I mentioned very specifically the signage. And I really think that if it needs to be an expense on our part, for future years, I'm just saying as one council member, I'm in support of that because I really don't envision this as a one summer, let's get back on track issue. I think that this is a continuous thing where we just try to create placemaking opportunities in the downtown for years to come. So, and that was a big concern that we heard, people don't know how to get around or what it was. And I think that was maybe due to a little bit of lack of signage too. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Bacon.
Yeah, just wanted to point out agenda item 4.1. There's a small misspelling in reappointments. And then I wanted to speak to that collective of individuals who are being seated for the income tax board of review. I was able to interview this collection of people and understand the complexity coming out of COVID with income tax and some of the things that could arise around that. This is an exceptional collection of reviewers upon interview, and I couldn't find any weaknesses in this group. It was impressive having seen other boards seated in this. This is an absolutely amazing collection. I just want to acknowledge that from the interview process, and I'm excited to see what work they do and the decisions they make around supporting the income tax on the board of review.
Great. All right. Any other comments on the consent agenda? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Wonderful. That passes unanimously. We are now on to our first and only public hearing of the night, and I'm going to request that we probably take a break after this public hearing, just before we get into our business agenda items. And I will hand this over to Amy Schlussler-Schmidt, consideration of special assessment roll number 76, Downtown Management Board Project. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So before you this evening, you will hold the second of 2 required public hearings regarding special assessment number 76. This is in support of Downtown Management Board activities. As council is pretty familiar with the Downtown Management Board at this time, in 1997, the East Lansing City Council actually established a principal shopping district that would support downtown merchant and economic development activities for the downtown. The majority of the special assessment funds that are collected as part of the special assessment are used to, support development activities. Most recently, even in this time of COVID, activities have included things such as the implementation of a Downtown East Lansing e-gift card program, and explore Downtown East Lansing app that lists business directory information, and certainly support of the PLACE project that we're all quite familiar with at this time. At the conclusion of the public hearing, council is being asked to consider the approval of the special assessment. I also think it's important to note that the special assessment rate is remaining at the same rate as it was this prior year, and it actually has not increased in 24 years. So I know that the current special assessment would be in place for 2 years, and then at that time, council could consider it at a different level. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or certainly I can address questions following the public hearing.
Did anybody have any questions for Amy Schulzer-Schmidt before I open this up to the public? Great. And I apologize, Ms. Schulzer-Schmidt, is there a preferred title that you would like to be referred to during this meeting?
Why don't you just call me Amy? I think
okay,
that's great.
understood.
Thank you.
Apologies. I think I've asked you that before, but I think I lost the sticky note.
No, it's not. It's not a problem.
That is my bad. All right. This is, we'll open up the public hearing to anybody that is calling in at the moment. You will have 5 minutes to speak to the council on this subject. Specifically, Emily, would you mind letting in the first caller?
Caller with the phone number ending in 963, you are now permitted to address council.
Hi, this is Alice Dreger. My staff members who are listening asked me to respond to comments from the mayor earlier, so I'm just going to do that briefly since this is a public hearing. I'm particularly troubled that Mayor Stevens suggests that we have questioned the ethics of the city clerk. This is a false claim, and it's an absolutely false claim. The city clerk has to do what is asked of her. Her job depends upon it, just like my employees' jobs depend upon them doing what I ask of them. She is sometimes put in a very difficult position, and that is clear to us from the ways she has to respond to us. I'm troubled by the habit of some city leaders, and I certainly don't mean all, of using city staff as shields to hold in front of them when fire is coming their way, to claim that people are attacking staff when they are in fact criticizing the current administration. The redirection at this point is getting tired. The point of the article was to bring to light how at least some people on council are getting information on who is running for council when we can't get that information just for the asking. You get information before we can. You get the information before people not sitting on council and running for council can get it. When it comes to issues on which council must vote to do our business, it makes total sense that you would get information before us. It's inevitable, it's good, but it's a different game when the information being shared is not what council will vote on, it's what the people will vote on in the elections. FOIA is more work for city staff than just giving us the answer to our targeted questions. That's because to get the answer to our question when we have to use FOIA, we have to cast a really wide net. If our targeted question is simply answered, there's no need to cast a wide net. And in most cases, city staff does a fantastic job simply answering our questions, but sometimes they're limited by the administration and what they're allowed to answer. And that's when we end up having to use FOIA. Their answers that are directed to us generally through the communications department are excellent. Quinn and Michael do a fantastic job helping us get those answers. When we have to resort to FOIA, we waste everybody's time. I've been talking with some folks about the possibility of a charter amendment in East Lansing to improve transparency in the city of East Lansing, a system that we're thinking would make life easier for those on council, to be frank. I hope that if we get this idea coalesced and we bring it forward, that council members will support it and will recognize there are ways to improve transparency. I appreciate the suggestions that were made earlier by one council member that we resume the quarterly litigation status reports. That was very helpful for us to understand the people's business, and also that we start getting a quarterly lobbyist report. That seems like a great way to help us understand the people's business. I hope you all will visibly support these transparency moves. Finally, I think I heard the city manager say earlier that the staff work for the council. The staff don't really work for you. The staff work for the people. And you, the council, also work for the people of East Lansing. And in both cases, it's mostly for lousy pay. Certainly for everybody on city council, it is lousy pay. When Jessie Gregg worked for East Lansing Info, she made crap money, but she makes much more crap money now from the city council position. And I appreciate the service you all do. The council has to rely on our city staff to do the people's business. And the staff in East Lansing do an exceptional job supporting the council in that work. But the council members should make sure they only use staff for the people's business, not their own political business. And that's the issue that we raised. Michigan state law makes that clear, that you should use the staff for the people's business, not your own business. And I'm sure when you reflect on this ethically, you would completely agree in accord with the law. Thank you.
Thank you. And letting in the next caller.
Those are all the callers on the line.
Great. Alrighty. We will move on to the motion or the item at hand. At this point, does anybody have any more questions for staff in regards to this item? Alrighty. Then there is a proposed motion at this point that I would entertain if anybody would like to make that motion.
I just have to scroll to it. Give me a second.
Okay.
Aaron.
I am more than happy to make that motion at this point. I will make a motion to approve a resolution of the special assessment roll number 76, and I would look for a second.
A second.
Great. Any discussion on the item?
I think we got a comment at a previous council meeting about how businesses were suffering. Maybe this was something that was written as a comment that I saw on Facebook, but I just kind of wanted to talk about that. This is a fee that's already pretty well baked into all of the rents that our businesses are paying downtown. I think that removing this fee would not reflect any sort of reduction in rent. It's so nominal that a landlord would really have to be paying very close attention to even realize that they were paying less money. This is the fee that goes with the property owner, not the business owner. And as Ms. Schussler-Smith mentioned, it's been the same for 25 years and it is very slight and we do a lot with it. So that is by my support of this resolution, but also just kind of to put that out into the public that we are cutting fees where we can, but this is one that does not make sense to do without.
Yep. And Amy, I apologize for putting you on the spot here, but there was originally a suggestion to actually increase this fee this year, correct?
So,
Last year.
yes,
Last year, okay.
before COVID hit, the Downtown Management Board was going to ask council to consider a slight increase. And then obviously COVID hit, which was unprecedented. And so what came before you at this time last year, actually, I think it was May 24th of last year, was a recommendation for a 1-year renewal. Generally, the renewals are 2 to 5 years. Right. And so it was the recommendation of the DMB that council consider a 1-year renewal to kind of see where we were at from an economic development perspective. So, at this time, that's why they're recommending sort of, keeping the status quo for 2 more years and then, perhaps reevaluating the assessment level.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, I fully agree at this point that I mean, I appreciate the breakdown too, because it gives kind of a good perspective of what individual properties are paying. But yeah, I would agree that it was the right thing to do to not increase that fee, especially. And I mean, it's difficult to kind of have that conversation because it's been the same for 25 years. But I do think these past couple of years have been pretty unique. So yeah, I'll be in support of this as well. Great. Any other comments on this item? All righty, seeing none. Oh, go ahead.
Mayor, after the vote, I'd like to just make a brief comment if I might.
Yep. All righty. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great, that passes unanimously. City Manager.
Yes, hopefully Amy can stay on the call for a second. I don't know if people know this, but our own Amy Schussler-Schmidt is going to be moving on to the state of Michigan. I actually work for MEDC, not quite the state of Michigan, but Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Amy has been with us 12 years. I got to talk to her today and remember that she came into the City of East Lansing as an intern and then has worked her way into lots of different positions. A highly trusted staff person, hardworking, dedicated, well-regarded by all of her colleagues, makes just really someone you can trust with any project and does just such a professional job. So a big thank you to Amy Schuschler-Schmidt for her service to the City of East Lansing. It has been great working with you, and we wish you best of luck at MEDC, and sure, it's their gain. I said that sort of nature needs balance because we took Adam from MEDC, and I think this is the turnaround that they sort of steal someone back from us. So it's always in balance that way. But congratulations to you, Amy. Thank you for your service, and we wish you well in your future endeavors.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, City Manager. I have been with the city for 12 years. I have had lots of personal and professional growth. I actually met my husband here and got married in my time here and had a child. So I'm fortunate to now be an East Lansing resident, so I am not going anywhere.
I believe your mic cut it out. I apologize.
We lost Jamie.
Yeah, I think your mic cut out.
She'll be back for CBGG. We can embarrass her more then.
We lost you. We got the gist of it.
I think what she was going to say is I mean, just what an incredible city this is, and the council's awesome, and
yes.
No, I'm just kidding. No, and yeah, we'll see you back for CDBG, but I'd echo everything the city manager said. I didn't know whether that announcement was super public yet, but I've worked with Amy now for around 5 years, I'd say. For CDBG stuff before I was elected to the council. Councilmember Watson has shared that with me as well. And just the attention to especially the nonprofits in the area and the businesses is noted throughout the community. And I don't think anybody in this community has a single bad thing to say. So, and that speaks to your character. That also speaks to the incredible work that you've done. So I appreciate your service and thank you for being with us. Alrighty. At this point, it is 8:26. We have passed the public hearing item. I will ask that we come back at 8:36, get a 10-minute break, and then we'll go back to our business agenda. All right. Bye.
Emily, if you're there, can you hear me now?
Amy, I can hear you.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Of course, that's the minute my mic is going to cut out, as I was saying how much I appreciated being part of the city, but I'll get there for CDBG. I don't know what happened. I'm at City Hall.
Yeah, it was weird. It's never happened.
It's actually never happened. And I'm like, of course, now's the moment it's going to cut out. All right. Well, I'll see you back here for CDBG discussion.
See ya. Thanks.
Yep. I'm so sorry, Mayor. I don't know why I cut out, but
Oh,
I
you're all
did.
good. You're all
But
good.
I will thank you all after CDBG. I was just like, well, maybe that's just, the powers that be telling me I talk too much, right? Like I'm a talker, and then I couldn't respond to all the kind comments with affirmations. But I'll say something during CDBG. I was like, I don't even know what's happening. I'm in the office. What happened? But
No, you're all good.
Jokes on me.
Do we have everybody back?
I'm here.
Great. Councilmember Babcock, are you with us? Give her a minute or two. Councilmember Babcock, you there? Give her like one more minute, and then we'll get started. Jesse, I like that headband. I need one.
I'd tell you where I bought it, but I can't for conflict of interest reasons.
Oh yeah, it's true. I suppose that's correct. Councilmember Babcock, are you with us? Alrighty. I will move us on to at least the staff explanation of our business agenda. The first item on our agenda is actually 6.2 because we removed 6.1, which is consideration of a resolution authorizing the notice of intent to issue revenue bonds to finance capital improvements in water resource recovery facility WRF in an amount not to exceed $36,060,000. Our staff contact on this is Scott House, Director of DPW. Mr. House is there. Preferred pronouns. I apologize. I already used Mr., but preferred pronouns or title that you'd like to be referred to for the rest of the meeting.
Scott's perfect.
Great. Thank you, Scott. All right. I'll hand it off to you.
All right. Good evening. Thanks for having me here tonight. Before you tonight is a consideration of resolution issue revenue bonds to fund the next phase of improvements for the WRF. I will pull up a presentation here to walk you through this. Give me a second to share my screen. All right. You guys see that okay?
I cannot see the screen at this point.
Just see you still.
There we go.
There we go. It's starting.
All right.
That looks better.
All right. So this will be our fourth phase of improvements to the WRF, the Water Resource Recovery Facility. And as we, excuse me, there we go. I have multiple PowerPoints open. So to describe where we're at, what we've been doing at the Water Resource Recovery Facility, we go back to the beginning of it. It was constructed in 1964 and expanded in the 70s. And it's over the past 6 years, we've been replacing first generation equipment that has a lifespan of design life of 25 to 35 years. And much of this equipment has exceeded its lifespan. So go into our first phase, and I'm gonna use a highlighter here to kind of describe this. We did in 2014, 2015, we did the headworks, or no, correction, the outlet, which was the ultraviolet disinfection and tertiary treatment. That was $15 million. And next we went to phase 2, headworks and grit removal. That's just wrapping up. That's where all the flow comes in. Currently we have the solids handling with digestion ongoing, $32 million. And then we have 2 more phases after this. And this is phase 4, which is in this red area. this is the primary, the meat and potatoes of the treatment process that, and you'll see which clarification removes sludge, separates solids, and aeration causes biological activity to grow and breaks down material as well. But also, this is our current limiting factor in our facility. And the next phase, the fifth phase, would be a facility improvement where we would upgrade the facilities where our employees work, where our labs are located, and so forth. So going on, describing this project more, this project would include, would be constructing new clarifiers. We'd be rebuilding new existing clarifiers. We'd be improving aeration here and here. We'd be building a centralized blower unit that provides air that's pumped out to the aeration units, and we'd be rebuilding primary clarifiers. We talked about, hey, could we split this project into two? And the problem was all this was very interrelated. And the other challenge with aeration was it was such a big return on investment that when we do this, that we wanted to get after this first, whereas our primary clarifiers, which are the tanks here, and our secondary were in worse condition. But by combining this, we achieve many, we achieve a lot of efficiencies. And so in the past, we talked about the price being $34 million. Our project estimate's $36 million. That includes $1.9 million in contingency. We look at East Lansing's potential liability. It's approximately $9.6 million at 26.67%. Meridian Township would pay 33.33%, M.A.C. 40%. Also, this will save approximately $372,000 to $400,000 per year in energy usage, and we might receive green interest forgiveness from Eagle on this. Any questions so far?
Not seeing any.
All right. So we're going to ask you, why is this important? And sometimes, you know, I describe this to like a new car and an old car. Well, over here is the 1960s Ford gate that will not open. It's rusted. We have electrical conduit that's rotting. It's so old. This is the 1974 drives for the primaries. They're rotting, they're failing, and we're piecemealing them. And this is what we're seeing on the surface. A lot of the stuff is underwater in corrosive environments and is further breaking down. Here's a gate that we need to separate flow. We had to use this for the headworks. It's held together by a clamp. Here's another gate that is not in use, but it's in closed condition that we could not operate if we wanted to. Then here's another gate, and the primary challenge with aeration is we have a lot of gates that will not operate. They are frozen. These are gates from the mid 70s, and they will no longer turn. And we thought we could do aeration improvements a lot easier and a lot quicker if we could just operate these gates, shut them off, but that was not feasible. And therein lies a lot of this cost for replacing gates, adding a flow trough, and doing other things to maintain flow. And the challenge here is the wastewater plant, the WRF will not shut down in construction. We have to keep it working throughout construction, and it's a difficult balancing act. And again, here's an updated side from Tetra Tech that shows energy savings by more efficient blower infrastructure, better controls, and this will pay off long term. So we go on about the timeline. This has been something that a project that's been in the works for a while. The contract is awarded Tetra Tech over a year ago. Plans have been submitted to Eagle. The plans are out for bid. We've had a pre-bid meeting. We submitted funding applications to Eagle as well. And we are here tonight for City Council for the first touch point to provide notice of intent to issue bonds. And this will provide a 45-day notice for residents to provide comment, and there's other provisions in there that's in the attachments in the resolutions. And then in mid-June or early June, we'll open the bids, and then we'll come back to you to make the tentative award, and we'll finalize the bonding paperwork. And we look at, well, so what's the so what to this? We talked about the price, the East Lansing. We're looking at the 9.6 million, but we have none of our estimates taken $700,000 for the green principal forgiveness. Also good news for the state revolving fund, which is SRF, and I failed to spell that out in the the communication, so I apologize, is in past years was 2%. Right now it's 1.85%. Now we look at our debt service in time. This is we're seeing it grow, and you might, the red line, the dashed line is the cumulative. Red is East Lansing. Then, oh, excuse me. Then we have Meridian Township and MSU, and our debt service is higher because we had collection system debt. We had the tunnel. We had Michigan Avenue. And we also had a greater share of Woodingham Pump Station. And this debt service is included in our future rate models that we provided during the budget process. The one downside of increased debt service is we'll have a lower ability to cash fund collection system improvements. But in time, things will start dropping off again as well. We're also hopeful that federal funding will help us deter some of these costs. Will that be able to remove some of that fund, to relieve some of that debt service in totality? We do not know, but we will keep our eyes open for opportunity to pursue that. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and answer any questions you might have regarding this project.
Yeah, I do have one question. In terms of the timeline, you talked about open bids on the 7th of June and then City Council tentative award on the 15th. Can you just talk to me a little bit about the rationale behind that timeline?
So we want to be aggressive to get this going. We're in a tight timeline, and realistically, if we don't get to you on the 15th, it might have to go to the 22nd. We were talking that, and also this is a difficult bid environment. We've gone back and forth with our designer several times to make sure that our estimate accurate, because we're seeing bids all over the place, but for what we're doing here, we're not dealing with timber. We're dealing with specialized products that are already in limited supply, but they weren't impacted in the supply chain like other commodities. But there is risk. What if the bids come in 20% high? There will be decision points, and there's also contingencies built in here to this. There are alternate bid items that we would provide that we'd take away from the project as well to provide that opportunity. And the other risk point here would be, what happens if we stop? What happens if these bids come in ridiculously high? Well, we could do part, or we could pause and wait for a better bid environment. But I think it's going to be tough over the next few years here as more money pours into the funding stream. The federal funding has not made it into the construction, hasn't made it on this yet. Maybe here will be a different story.
Yeah, no, I mean, that certainly makes sense. Is just, a tight timeline, and actually that rationale does make a lot of sense. I mean, do you think that, in your expert opinion, that we're going to be getting at least enough offers to really make a conceded effort about whether or not we need to pause or we need to reevaluate going forward in that week, 2 week timeline?
Yes, I think the bids will speak for themselves.
Right.
The good thing is Tetra Tech's a great designer. There's a lot of interest in this project. We have a good working relationship with local contractors. There's a lot of contractors in the area. And this is an attractive project due to the size and duration and the various trades.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate answering that question. Any more questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Babcock.
Thank you. This is kind of a side question, but do we have any anticipated finish date for Woodingham? Those folks have lived with a lot of heavy equipment for a long time, and I know it's a really big and really important project, but my heart goes out to them.
Good question. Woodingham is, and it's wrapping up. Ideally, it was going to be done this month. There were delays, obviously, a little bit. They're wiring the generator, putting an odor control system in, and doing site restoration, but they're literally doing the last touches. And then after they get the site buttoned up, they will come back and repave the street due to the disruption. And we're also talking more about installing a fence to screen some of that infrastructure out front, because as you go by, those valves were a little more noticeable, and looking at some screening there too to kind of soften the appearance.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions for Director House? All right. I don't know if I've been here for every phase of this project, but I've at least been here for a few. And I'd just like to say the amount of work that's going into this is very, very extensive. It's a very, very complicated project with a lot of moving parts and a lot of partners to keep in the loop. And this is going to be beneficial for us. It's something that's not only beneficial, but it's necessary for us to do. And, you know, I think the pictures do it a little bit of justice, but it certainly doesn't do all the justice necessary. So, you know, I'm glad to see this on the agenda. I'm glad to see us moving forward. And I really hope that those bids come in at a reasonable rate so we can get something going forward, because I didn't really think that we would imagine we'd be probably in the bidding environment we are when we talked about this a couple of years ago. But I have full faith in staff, and I'm entrusting that when we get back on June 15th or the 22nd, we're going to have good news. So appreciate it.
And thank you. And also there'll be good news there where hopefully we'll be doing a ribbon cutting soon so people can see the digester in person. And, you know, you'll see some of this infrastructure in person as well, because when you look through it, it's amazing what we thought was good is now like, oh, this is kind of rough. And this is very rough. So, but we appreciate the support. And
Good.
It's important what we do to protect the environment and to make smart investments that will pay off long term.
Yeah, you know what, Scott, I'm going to ask you to do something that I ask you to do like every single time we talk about this, but can you actually talk a little bit more about the environmental impacts that this is going to have and some of the cost saving impacts? I know we talk about it very frequently, but just to say it again.
So part of this, so if we can pretty much increase our capacity, our farm capacity, that means where in the 10 state standards where you rate wastewater treatment plants, water resource recovery facilities, we're going to be able to safely convey more flow. And the thing is, the reality here, rain events are going to become more erratic. We haven't seen it this year, but last year was very wet. We need to forecast a wetter system, higher intensity rain events, but also growth as well. Growth not only from us, Meridian and MSU, and changes in patterns and whatnot as well. And then we look at $400,000 a year in electrical savings. And to be frank, one of the electricity is going to be one of the, I see the highest growth or the potential rate increase in electricity because there's going to be more demand. People are going to be seeking to electrify vehicles, get away from natural gas. And there's only so much electricity out there. So anytime we can reduce costs, generate electricity on site through digestion or solar, those are things that will pay off for years to smooth that curve, because you know the distribution system and the electrical side is limited and needs massive investment as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then, yeah, and I do appreciate the efforts that have been done here. I mean, this is honestly probably one of the most, we talk about, you know, being an environmental city and really trying to be conscious and caring. And it's not always, you know, although digesters, of course, you know, the best things to talk about, and certainly I will be there for the ribbon cutting. However, when you get into the meat and potatoes of things, you look at what really costs you the most energy, what's using the most energy in your city, and what could be more efficient to reduce emissions and to actually, you know, try to get back some of that and make a real environmental impact. And this is it. I mean, this is one of the most substantial things that the city most likely will ever do. And I'm really proud to be the council that is pushing it forward still. So appreciate the efforts.
Thank you. And not to prolong this, but one thing though is we're being smart by getting in front of things before they fail.
Yeah.
Because when they fail, you lose the initiative and the environment suffers. Everyone suffers. People lose confidence, and we don't want to be the wastewater treatment plant that can't meet its mission or its regulatory requirements.
Absolutely. Good note. Go ahead, Councilmember Babcock.
Am I the only person who was amused by the mayor's reference to meat and potatoes as we talk about a sewage digester? Sorry, it's getting late, folks. I'm sorry. I'll just mute myself now.
Mr. House mentioned that first, and no one said anything. And I looked for a reaction, and no one said anything. So I'm just going
to shout out to Ruth Byer, because she probably have a few more puns than I would on it, but apparently I made one regardless. Great. All right. Is there a motion on this? You're looking for a motion at this point, correct? Great.
Yes, Mayor.
All right. Is there a motion on this item?
I can make that motion. Hang on a second. I move approval of a resolution authorizing notice of intent to issue revenue bonds to finance capital improvements for the water resource recovery facility in an amount not to exceed $36,060,000.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bacon. Motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any more discussion?
Just saying, I'm really excited to come see the digester. I know that's not what we're voting on, but I'm still excited about it.
Yeah. A lot of improvements have been made so far too. It looks really great. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great. Thank you, Director House, for being with us, Scott, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Great. We are on to our next item, which is consideration of community development block grant fiscal year 2022 budget. And I'll hand this back over to Amy Schlichler-Schmidt. Amy, thanks for being back with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Mayor. So before you this evening are some proposed options regarding the Community Development Block Grant or CDBG budget. We have had several discussions regarding the budget, as well as held 2 public hearings regarding the fiscal year 22 or program year 21 HUD Community Development Block Grant budget. As you might recall, at the most recent May 18th meeting, Council did request that staff reach out to 2 additional nonprofit agencies. That was MSU Migrant Student Services and Legal Services of South Central Michigan, to see if they might be interested in also partnering through some proposed public service activities. Staff was able to get in touch with those organizations, and they certainly are interested, and expressed that they would be happy to partner at about a $10,000 funding level. I believe we might pull up the budget on the screen. And so before you this evening, you have a couple of items. You have the original proposed fiscal year 22 draft budget that has been sort of reviewed and discussed several times at both public hearings. You have an option 1, which staff has taken, and really what we've done is try to make things equitable in the sense that we would recommend for sort of administrative baseline, we recommend a minimum of about $10,000 to each organization to sort of, both serve organizations and cover admin fees. So that is, under option 1, with slight increases for organizations that are providing emergent need. So food and shelter during this time of COVID. And then option 2 before you would be essentially just straight, even allocation to all nonprofit organizations that have been mentioned thus far. So each organization would receive a little more than $15,000. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I know that this evening you're also in the future going to have a discussion about the budget. It has been, our hope is that this evening you'll approve sort of the general fund budget and the CDBG budget at this time. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the budget options.
Great. I appreciate both those presentations. I do have a couple of questions. So option 1 in regards to kind of different funding levels, was that kind of by organization based on what folks said that they needed or what the money would be allocated for? Could you kind of, and this is me asking for a member of staff to kind of give their opinion on an issue, so feel free to tell me to shut up, but I mean, just the pros and cons of kind of both approaches.
Well, I certainly think that from an equality perspective, right, if you decided to go with option 2, everyone gets the same dollar amount. I think that in terms of option 1, a couple of considerations that staff made are, for example, some organizations for public services. Again, I'm speaking specifically to public services right now, just to make that clarification. But, some organizations can serve several more people just based on the type of service that they give, right? So, it's kind of a numbers situation as well. So, for example, perhaps, for overnight shelter, in an entire fiscal year, perhaps one shelter could service close to 200 or 300 individuals based on their capacity. Whereas another shelter, with our funds might only be able to service, closer to 50. So that was, one kind of consideration given. But to be honest with you, a lot of the discussion was about providing the emergent need and, that priority right now during COVID.
Yeah, makes sense. Other questions for staff? Feel free to chime in.
I have a question. Yeah. South Central Legal Services, are they on the list or not on the list? I'm sorry, I might have missed something.
Yeah, it is. It is in the staff memo, but it's not in the proposed draft budget either of them.
Well, I apologize, Councilmember Watson. I swear I've looked at this document a million times, but I do not actually see them on the list.
I actually saw it at some point too, and I thought Parks and Rec was lower, but yeah, please tell us what the, you know, option 1 and option 2 should.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. Let me. I can just have a minute to run the budget quickly. I can get back with you.
Yep. Yeah, and if we need to head to our next item first and come back to this one, I'm more than happy to do that.
Amy, do you need a minute? Should we step on to the next item and come back to you?
Sure, that might be great if that's fine with everyone. Let me just triple check my numbers and that would be great.
Yep, not a problem.
Stand the line. Okay, thank you.
Yep, not a problem. All righty. We will head back to that item momentarily. I will move on to 6.4, which is consideration of fiscal year 2022 budget tax rate and fee schedule resolution. And I will hand this over to Jill Feldposh, our finance director. Director Feldposh, thanks for being with us.
Could I just jump in for 1 second?
Yep, absolutely.
Just want to mention a couple of things quickly. Obviously, this is a tremendous process for council and staff. We started the process internally back in December. I want to thank Director Feldposh, Audrey, Andrea, Justin, and all the directors and people who've contributed, key staff who've contributed lots of time and effort. I certainly want to thank council. This is a tremendous effort in terms of commitment of time. You all have many things to do in your busy day, but you've contributed 2 meetings per night on Tuesday nights, which is a heavy lift. Greatly appreciate all of your effort reviewing the materials, providing feedback, questions, reading all the materials and all the things you've done. So great appreciation for your efforts. I wanted to mention one quick thing before Director Feldposh comes in to go through the budget, tax rate, and fee schedule, and that is to say that we've made one significant change, which was in response to the council's request for an enhanced DEI role. We've upgraded proposing to upgrade the position, the administrator position, and also move that position out of the city manager's division, move it to its own division, its own department, and add a full-time staff person going forward in that position. So heard council's wishes on that, and I believe that hopefully satisfies what council is looking for in that area. With that, I would turn over to Director Feldposh, and then of course we're available to answer any questions.
Good evening, Council. Before you tonight is the fiscal year 22 budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution. As George mentioned, we have had multiple council meetings, budget work sessions discussing the budget. The preliminary budget was published in early April. We've held 4 budget work sessions. We also had a discussion last week at the discussion only meeting regarding the budget items. And then we also held our public hearing on the budget and the tax rate in May. There are a few changes. We've added the $14,000 for 54B court treatment program. As the city manager said, the DEI department was created with the additional position. That total department cost is now $308,595. The full change in the general fund is increased costs of $94,950. So at this point, I would recommend we use fund balance to balance the budget. And then on the DDA, we have a change of $505, and that has to do with the MSU FCU project. And we discussed that last week at the discussion only meeting as well as in April. And then finally, on the fee side, there's a change to the water and sewer rates from the preliminary document. We had talked about that at the April 27th meeting, and Director House had presented the revised schedule for those. And then we've also added a discount voucher program under the parking section. So this would allow individuals to purchase kind of like a prepaid card worth $50 or $100, and it would cost half of that. So a $100 voucher would cost $50, and a $50 voucher would cost $25, so that they could use that as needed throughout the year. And then there was other discussion on parking fees and answers were provided in the Q&A that was in your packet. So those are the changes that are included in that resolution. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to discuss.
Thank you, Director Feldposh. Are there any other questions for our wonderful finance director or city manager on these items? Director Feldposh, and you might not know the answer to this, but can you talk to me a little bit about that discounted parking voucher? I'm sorry, I didn't actually see that in the parking fund. Was that more an initiative to just try and support businesses during, or is it kind of something that came to fruition because of some of the work that we've been doing in regards to parking vouchers over the past couple of years?
This is more in response to trying to make parking affordable for people that park downtown not as often. So perhaps a part-time employee that is downtown 10 hours a week.
Right.
Maybe it's not, beneficial to hold a parking permit. So they could buy this voucher. It's kind of like a discounted parking permit, but it's not for a month. It's just $50 worth of, or $100 worth of parking at a cost of $50.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool, and I appreciate the effort around it. Obviously, very, very open to hearing kind of what the parking task force has to say on a number of different issues in regards to downtown. But I do think that that's a really nice step in the right direction, especially when people are in the downtown often, but yeah, maybe not on a very, very regular basis to warrant the price of a monthly permit. So thank you. Questions? All righty. Well, I'm going to make a statement very, very similar to the city manager that I have made like 7 different times on 7 different occasions, but I'm going to do it again. So I'm sorry if you're sick of hearing it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The amount of work that goes into making this is incredible, and the amount of effort that goes into the budget process through public meetings, as well as council members, myself included, that ask a lot of questions that have a lot of implications in many different ways, has been incredible. I'm really proud of the work, and especially during this past year, I'm really proud of where we are. I think that last year at this time, I was worried, I was scared of where we were going to be, what our financial position was going to be at, and we're in a very good position right now. And that has to do with the effort and the leadership of our city staff, our city manager, and department heads, as well as the folks in our departments that kept the work going during a very, very difficult time. And now we're able to sit here in a probably privileged position as a council to be making amendments and doing things to support businesses, doing things to put money towards DE&I and other things that we view as priorities, really because of the work that our staff has done to make sure that we were able to do that. And so I just want to appreciate not only the work that went into creating this budget, but to create the situation that we are in to see this budget. And so I just want to thank the folks that did. And Jill, you and your team are always incredible and extremely timely on responses, and very, very thorough. So thank you for all the work that you've done. And I appreciate it. I really do. Great. All right. If there are no other questions, I can look for a motion to approve this.
Mayor Stevens?
Yes.
If I'd like to make a motion, if I'd like to amend something, do I need to make the motion first, or do
So if you would like to make an amendment, and this goes for anybody on council, you are more than free to, but you would make that amendment after there is a motion and a second to approve the overall budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution.
Okay.
So I would be looking for a motion on the overall item, and then if there are amendments, I will ask for that at that time.
I can make a motion.
Okay. And that, just to clarify, is a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution as presented, correct?
Thank you. Yes.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bacon, motion by Councilmember Watson. Are there any amendments? Councilmember Watson.
I have an amendment.
Yep.
No, so should I talk about it first and then tell you all what the amendment idea is, or?
You can feel free to talk about it first and make the amendment, and more than happy to.
Okay, so this amendment is about the moped fees. my amendment, I've taken into account the answers that were given regarding the moped fees. And initially, when the moped fees were introduced, it was introduced as a fee that was similar to MSU. And so because across the street, the suggestion is to charge so much more, I have a different suggestion to slow the climb of the fee from going from no fee to 180. Like I've heard us discuss not increasing fees for other groups. And so it is hard for me to hear about a fee and also realize how much higher it is across the street, and to remain competitive with them. My amendment suggestion on moped fees, I move to amend the fee schedule line item referred to as moped permit under the section permit rates from 180 annually to $60 fall semester, $60 spring semester, or $120 total, and free for the summer, freeing up staff and freeing up giving folks like 15, 16-year-olds or whoever rides the mopeds in the summertime an opportunity to just ride their mopeds.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Bacon. Councilmember Watson, if you don't mind, would I mind asking a question of staff? So Councilmember Watson had suggested by semester. Would we be able to implement something like that? I don't necessarily. I kind of want to know the logistics of what would involve there.
I can't speak for parking, and I think Caleb Sharrow is actually on the call tonight. But I can tell you from a treasury perspective, doing it for the year would probably be easier. It's less times that the person would have to come in to City Hall and get the permit. It would probably also be less cost because I'm assuming this will be some kind of paper permit or some kind of sticker, probably a sticker. So there would be less cost from an operations perspective. But like I said, I probably can't speak, well, I cannot speak for Caleb. So it looks like he's coming in.
Great.
But from a treasury perspective, it's administrative time would be the only consideration that I would have.
Okay, thank you. Caleb, and I apologize, Caleb Sharrow, their pronouns title that you would like to be referred to for the rest of the meeting.
Caleb is fine with me.
Great, Caleb, thank you.
All right, welcome everyone. Yes, so the moped fees, I believe doing it by semester would work well. It's just a decal, a sticker that will go on the mopeds. And it would be probably logistically a little more cumbersome to do it by month. So a semester seems very fair and very, very doable.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Do you have any concern with not having a permit for the summer necessarily with this, or is the moped permit really there to kind of account for the costs of mopeds within the city, and it's less so to keep track of the ones that are?
I think what we would probably suggest doing is that it would be by semester, but the fall semester would overlap half of the summer, spring semester would overlap half of the summer. So the permit is actually valid for half the year, but you could sell it as a semester.
Okay. I mean,
academic year kind of thing, academic semester. So we would just add it in so it does cover the entire year.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, those are the questions that I had for staff on it, and I suppose that was I feel like this is okay based on what the staff assessment for the cost of breaking even was. Hearing that the $50 was not really going to be appropriate for the amount of administrative costs that would be required. I think that 120 annually and even splitting it up by semester makes some sense, especially if you're going to have people that are maybe leaving in December or other things like that might have them. So yeah, I mean, I'll vote yes for this if it seems that this is something that is doable administratively. Okay. Any other questions, comments on the? Yep, go ahead, Director Feldposh.
I just want to clarify because I heard Council Member Watson say summer's free. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what I'm putting in this. So if we can just make sure we're clear on what we're doing, because I'm hearing Caleb say that it would still cover the summer. I just want to make sure that we're clear on what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Councilmember Watson, are you comfortable with half year 60 and 60 versus kind of what would be, from my understanding and from Director Feldposh's understanding, kind of 3 different, stickers, I suppose, and the summer being free in a sense?
Oh, it would be 2 stickers if the summer was free, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, will you give me the month breakdown? Is that, what does that mean? It starts when and ends when? And is it in sync with fall semester or spring semester?
Yeah, what I was envisioning was just lining up with the fiscal year. So starting July 1 and then going through semester end, and then starting as of basically that's January 1 and then going through the end of June, just to have it be half fiscal year, half fiscal year.
Councilmember Watson, are you comfortable with that enough to, let's say, make a friendly amendment to your amendment to better align the motion with half and half?
I'm sorry, Caleb, can you say it again? January through June for one, and the other one would be?
July through December, that would be.
July through December, yes. Thank you. Yes, I'm comfortable.
Okay, and the seconder, Councilmember Bacon, are you okay and comfortable with changing that motion that was originally $60 first semester, $60 second semester, and free during the summer to $60 from January 1 to June 30th, and then July 1 to December 31st?
Yes.
$60. Okay. Great.
And may I make another, can I comment a little bit more?
Oh yeah, this is your amendment. Go for it.
I just wanted to say, when I looked at the numbers, what if students say, well, that's much higher than what MSU charges me, and they just leave their mopeds across the street, like I said. And so I think also dividing it this way gives us an opportunity to see what's happening. Are folks making the purchases? Have we seen a decrease of mopeds being in the garages, or what's happened as an outcome of going from $0 to $180, or now, 60 for 6 months? But thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on the motion to amend? All right, there is a motion to amend on the table that has been made and seconded to edit, and I'm going to restate it just for the record, edit the permit fee for moped fees that was previously $180 annually to $60 for first part of the year from January 1 to June 30th, $60, and July 1st to December 31st, $60. That is the motion that has been made. Are there any more conversation on it? All right, great. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, that amendment passes unanimously. We are on to, again, the main motion as amended now. Are there any other amendments? I am not seeing anybody chime up. Okay. Then we are on to the main motion as amended. I'm going to give one more opportunity for folks to comment or to ask any final questions before we vote on the item. All right. Well, it's been a lot of work, and we're at a good place, and I'm really proud of the work that we're doing, and I appreciate staff's efforts to especially increase and an understanding of the priority that this council wants to put in DE&I, and I appreciate the effort to change what our DEI budget was before and actually creating a division, I think that's really significant. And I don't want to kind of go past this without recognizing how significant that is. I think that really, obviously, this council has put a huge priority on DE&I, but we're not all going to be here forever. And, you know, there's always going to be turnover. So to establish this as an actual department that will really forever be enshrined within the city of East Lansing, I think is very significant. And I want to make that note because it's important. And this is not only signaling to us as a council that we have a staff that is 100% on board, but we also have made this commitment as a community, as a council, to push this forward for years to come. So I appreciate this. I appreciate the work from our finance department, from our city manager, from all the directors and everybody down. Thank you very, very much. And I am proud to support this budget as amended. Wonderful. All righty. All those in favor of the motion as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Great. That has passed. We are officially out of budget season, kind of. Back to our. Sorry, what was that?
We got to go back to CBDG,
Yep.
but yeah, almost.
Yep. Back to item 6.3, and I will pass it along to Amy one more time. Amy.
Thank you, Mayor. So I apologize for the error on my part. I did not attach the right budget document. I think that Nicole or Emily might be able to screen share the budget document now. Are you guys able to see it?
Not yet, but I am sure they're figuring it out. There we go.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicole. Okay, there we go. So as I was mentioning before, I know that we had a little bit of a brief discussion, but so the fiscal year 22 budget column indicates the original budget that was presented in your budget packet for consideration. And that is the budget that staff worked with for the 2 prior public hearings regarding this item. Option 1 indicates funding allocations for organizations at a minimum level of $10,000 with the exception of the Parks and Recreation Youth Grant Scholarship money of $4,000. And then option 2 is just a straight equity across the board budget for all organizations. And again, I'm certainly happy to answer any questions individuals might have.
Yep. And then just for the purposes for folks that might be listening in or who might be visually impaired, I wanted to read off kind of what the changes were from the previous budget item. So the only changes that I can see were the items under option 1 and option 2 for public services. So previously as written on the document, those line items now read for option 1, Haven House receiving $28,510 for option 1, and for option 2, $12,530. For Tri-County Office on Aging, previously receiving $10,000, option 1 still receiving $10,000, and option 2 receiving now $12,530. Eve changing from $13,045 to receiving in option 1 $12,670, and in option 2, rather than receiving the $15,036, now receiving $12,530. MSU Safe Place still maintained at 0 on both options. Park and Recreation Youth Grant Scholarships going from $10,000 to $4,000 in option 1 and $15,036 to $12,530 in option 2. MSU HEP Camp receiving $10,000 in option 1 and $12,530 in option 2. And Legal Services of South Central Michigan receiving $10,000 in option 1 and $12,530 in option 2 that was previously not on the public service amended budget. Thanks. Great. All right, any questions for staff on this?
I guess Dina sort of asked this question, but now I guess I'm going to ask it again because I didn't 100% I guess hear the answer or understand the answer. But with Haven House being funded at like such a, in suggested budget number 1, being suggested at a much higher amount, that's essentially just because we anticipate them serving more individual people. And then the youth scholarship grant at 4,000, that's like basically based on what it had been funded at previously, or was that some indication from within the department that that's what they anticipated it to be needed?
The $4,000 level was indicated as needed and requested from the Parks and Recreation Division. Yes.
Okay.
And
So
yes,
we
Haven House
potentially
was
could give
suggested.
them, we potentially could give them 3 times as much of that even. I mean,
That's correct.
People
Yes.
do find ways to spend money. I imagine
yes.
that they would. I imagine they would find a use for it, but
yes. And what I might recommend,
I mean,
Mayor Pro Tem, is that if you wanted to do that, you know, I have youth scholarship there. I might just make a friendly amendment. I had actually talked with a couple of staff members that, you know, if they received more funding, that perhaps it would go towards like the youth scholarship program and maybe like summer programming or summer camp programming. So, you know, it might just be best, like I would just make it clear to HUD that it was going to support youth activities, if that makes sense. So not necessarily specific to the youth scholarship, but if they got a higher funding level to support like youth support activities. Yes.
I don't know, I guess it's kind of hard. It seems like tidy to just give everybody exactly the same amount, but it kind of doesn't reflect exactly the services that each of those agencies is giving. So
yeah.
But then
Emily, would you mind
I
keeping the
feel a little bit mean suggesting option 1 because I feel like I'm taking money away from people.
Would you mind keeping the new document on the screen, please, while we're doing this conversation? Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Bacon.
Yeah, kind of to build off of Mayor Pro Tem Greg's point, I perceive there could be some additional hardship in that Parks and Recreation area that we haven't anticipated yet. And if we have to change the general naming or assumption on that in order to grant them a little bit more funding, I'd be in support of that because I could see where some of the hardship hasn't been absorbed yet for people trying to get their children or students involved in programming. I'd be curious that have any support for that to move there. Not knowing where from yet, but to move their number up.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm more in support of option 1 that kind of allocates money based on what we've perceived as the need for different organizations. If we wanted to do, you know, youth grant scholarships, then they had requested $4,000 and that was a request from that organization. So, you know, in general, if we're talking about giving more money to Parks and Rec for youth activities, I don't really think that's something we've talked about on the council. Not saying that it's not, you know, it doesn't have merit, but for the purposes of this budget specifically, that was what was requested. So that would be, you know, I guess I wouldn't really be in favor of just increasing that amount because we can. I would rather do it based on what they requested originally, which was the $4,000. Go ahead, Councilmember Babcock. Again, that's just my opinion.
Question, do we have a friends group for Parks and Rec, particularly for youth programs?
I don't believe we have a general one for youth programs, but I can ask Wendy, who's on the call, if we could move her to participants to answer that.
She is now in participants. Wendy, if you're with us.
I am. Hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you all tonight? We do not have, oh, by the way, you can refer to me as Wendy, and I do use the pronouns she and her. So we do not have a friends group that deals specifically with scholarships or with any type of fundraising for programs. We actually don't have any kind of friends group that's titled that. We do have a number of 501c3 organizations that we partner with to work on specific programs. For example, the All of Us Express Children's Theater has a separate nonprofit fundraising arm that we partner with a lot. So we have a number of different groups along those lines. The other thing that I would comment on is the request that you received from us for the $4,000 was based on previous requests. We definitely could utilize additional resources and additional funds, especially if they were identified as being able to be used in a broader sense. We just really submitted the current request based on what our previous requests had been.
It's a great clarification. Thank you, Wendy. Councilmember Babcock, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you still have any more?
No, that was just my question. Thank you.
Great. Any more questions for staff? All right. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just my comment, my thought process is I'm definitely leaning towards option one. And that's because we got that layout of how much, for example, Haven House had been funded in the past, and the 28 is closer to what they've previously been funded, and the 12 ends up being, like half and such a huge cut. And when you look at percentage increases like Tri-County Office on Aging, they're just getting like $2,000 more. And so what percentage is that in comparison to Haven House getting knocked down by so much? And so for me, I love having these options. I love seeing these social service groups back, and I'm leaning towards option one.
Yeah, I would agree with Councilmember Watson on that. And the other point that I would want to make is one of the areas, and we heard it so briefly mentioned, but one of the areas that I think could make probably the most impact in not only youth activities, but pay to play and other things in general is if there was actually a scale of how much people pay based on income level. That was something that was suggested at the Parks and Rec Commission. And I just say, I agree that there needs to be a little bit more. And in terms of equity, right, I think that would be probably the most helpful, honestly, if anything, than even allocating extra dollars here. And, in general, I have no doubt that the money would go to good use. But because we haven't really discussed it further and the request was made, and I know exactly what that money is going to go towards in terms of Parks and Rec, that would be the one that I would be more in favor of. Although if we have a further council discussion and I get a little bit more context to what the money would go to, then I might support, more in the future. But that's where I'm leaning right now. Go ahead, Councilmember Babcock.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we adopt option one.
Okay. And then is that option one, of course, that was presented at this meeting at the public services at,
Oh, excuse me.
that includes
Option one
South
that's presented
Central
at this
Michigan?
meeting before us, and which is presently before us. And do you want me to option one to the FY22 amended budget? Oh man, my bifocals are not cooperating. Anybody want to jump in, you young people?
Okay. You must be talking. Kidding.
Mr. Homer, I just want to make sure that we're approving the right one, just because there's a different one on the agenda than what we're seeing on the screen.
Do you want me to list the allocations, or?
I don't know if that's necessary, but I'd look to our city attorney just to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, as long as the motion's clear about the options that you're approving, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Yeah. And let me just put a point of clarification. This was a motion to approve our fiscal year 22 community development block grant budget. And that's the block grant budget that includes public services, that also includes legal services of South Central Michigan, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Well, that was option one. Mr. Homer, do you think that's sufficient?
I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. All righty. Any more discussion on this?
Yes.
Yep.
I wanted to just take an opportunity to thank everyone for just the entire budgeting session. It was a lot to learn, and I learned a lot. I appreciate staff. I appreciate how you all break stuff down and how you all just really understand our budgets and help us. And Amy, I remember meeting you. I think you were pregnant when I participated in the advisory board. And it's just been a pleasure working with you. When I saw your name on another topic, I realized, you wear multiple hats, and I'm just sure you're going to do great, and you're going to be appreciated wherever you are, and we'll miss you. And thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Watson. I apologize. I suppose I'm going out with a bang with attaching the wrong document. So I really do apologize for that. I know that my audio cut out. This is just not my night, clearly, but that's okay. I know my audio cut out earlier, but I it has been a pleasure serving the East Lansing community. I've actually been here for 12 years, and I just wanted to thank everyone. And I did meet several of you before then. So I have fallen in love and gotten married and had a beautiful daughter in my tenure here. So, and I'm an East Lansing resident, so I'm definitely planning to still continue to see you out and about. So
Got to expect you to be here at public comment. Councilmember Babcock.
I'm just glad we got to.
Yeah, I can't let you go. Oh, sorry, Babcock, you were not sounding for a second. I didn't realize I was interrupting you. Go ahead.
Anyway, I'm glad we got to surprise you with some last minute math at your last meeting, but we will miss you. Even on your off nights, you are still great, and I will miss working with you. So thank you for all you've done.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I can't begrudge you bigger and better things with the MEDC. I think that you have got a real, this might not be a compliment, but you do have a talent for government regulation. So they'll be very lucky to have you, and we'll miss you terribly. And also miss your contributions on the DMV. I think that you had put some powerful legwork into uniting the downtown business community, which has been very helpful during COVID in terms of reaching out and connecting businesses that are feeling a little adrift. So both of your strange unrelated hats are going to be difficult to fill. And I wish you the best at the MEDC.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Councilmember Bacon. You're getting all the praise.
Oh yeah, it's just always been a pleasure to work with you. You're just always super professional and pleasant. It's all the time that I've been around East Lansing community and around you. It's just been an absolute pleasure. And this is just a really rough time. The only child in me is having trouble with these departures and processing these losses very personally. But no, just best of luck in anything. And obviously any way we can ever assist you as private citizens or otherwise in your career, just let us know. We just love to support you. You've been amazing for the city. Thank you.
Thank you all. And as an East Lansing resident, let me just say I appreciate all of your service and your dedication. I have made lifelong friends with city staff. They're phenomenal. They're dedicated. They give 40+ hours a week, let me tell you, because I have seen them. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize all of my colleagues and the leadership here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All righty. We have a motion on the table, if I am not mistaken. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great, that passes unanimously. That was our last item on the agenda tonight. Thank you for being with us. What a budget session. We will see you back June 8th. Bye, everybody.